Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Thou art the potter, I am the clay. Mold me and make me after thy will, while I am waiting, yielded and still. Have thine own way, Lord, have thine own way. Search me and try me, Master, today. Whiter than snow, Lord, wash me just now, as in thy presence humbly I bow. As in thy presence humbly I bow. In the current situation with the coronavirus, this is the attitude that a Christian should have, telling God to have everything His way, because everything does happen according to His plan. Now, we talked in the previous lesson about what the Bible says about pandemic diseases, and we looked at a few Bible texts, and we considered, this is from last time, that nothing happens outside the will of God. We take it a bit further now, so this is from last time, you should have all this. Look a little bit further now and highlight a few things. Because people ask the question, why does a God who is good allow these things to happen? Well, you see in Exodus 9, the plagues on Egypt, for instance, that God brought plagues and diseases on both His people and His enemies, in the case here on His enemies, to make you see my power. In Egypt, He actually spared His own people, as we see in Exodus 12 and 15, to show His control over these diseases. Because you had, say, this is the whole of Egypt, and the people of Israel lived in this little place here, and only the Egyptians were affected. We see it in Exodus 12 and 13 and Exodus 15:26, how the people of God who lived also in Egypt, but in a separate part, the land of Goshen, were spared. So that's one observation. God also tells His people that disobedience results in consequences. Leviticus 26, Numbers 16. People died for various acts of disobedience. And He warns His people outright in Deuteronomy 28, as Moses speaks, the Lord will strike you with wasting disease, with fever and inflammation, which will plague you until you perish. So, another reason, disobedience, to bring up these things. I'll sum it up for you later. Finally, God says, I'm allowing sickness because we now, since the fall into sin, have a fallen world. So God still allows sickness for his own purpose, but sometimes diseases, even worldwide pandemics, are simply the result of living in a fallen world. Like in our case, with this pandemic, speculation is the Western world especially has gone away from God and God is punishing. Maybe that's the case, we don't know. But the fact is, we live in a fallen world where these things do happen. So let's sum this up in your notes in a moment. Alright? So there are three possible reasons put the question first again. That seems to work very well. So, why does a pandemic happen? First reason could be God exercises punishment on sin. That's one reason that God gives. Second reason, man is careless and faces the consequences. What do we mean by that? Well, say this middle of winter in Canada, the Canadians among us will know how cold that can be, and you go outside in summer clothing. Chances are you suffer hypothermia, right? And you may even die. That's a careless attitude. Bad hygiene, as in the time of the Black Death. And maybe even today with the coronavirus, can lead to drastic consequences. Now, in our situation, the third reason disease is simply part of living in a fallen world. And if you look at the words of Jesus, in John 16:33, we see, in the world you will have tribulation, trials, like a pandemic for instance, but be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. We will shortly see a video clip about this. So what I need you to copy in a moment, after you've done the note taking from the board, is this bit here. So copy, after you've written all this down, copy John 16, what was it, verse 14b, I believe, or 33b, 33 the second part. So this basically sums up 3 reasons that a pandemic can happen. Now, regarding the first one, we can't say that anymore. In the Bible, God has revealed this to his people, when things happen and why they do, to the people of Israel. The next 2, we can kind of figure out ourselves. When you're careless, you don't put air in your car tires, you start driving, the tires will get ruined. Simple. If you are an excessive drinker of alcohol, you get sickness in your body. Your liver will go to waste, and other parts maybe too. You smoke a lot, you probably get emphysema, lung disease. That's a possibility. So there's a cause and effect, which we can then reason out. But, like with the current coronavirus, like with the Black Death, we can speculate, but one thing we know for sure, it is part of living in a fallen world. So those are the sort of things that the Bible talks about when it comes to diseases. Let's now go to a video where a man is talking about how we have to see this.
As the world faces the COVID-19 pandemic, there's a growing sense of uncertainty, of questions, unanswered questions, and even anxiety. And Gordon, I think one of those questions that people are wrestling now, a deep question, is if God is good, why does he allow, this virus? How do you process that in your own life, and what do you say to people that are seeking, and even those who may not believe in God?
Well, you go back to the words of Jesus, and he promised that in this world you'll have trouble. So that we have to recognize this isn't a surprise to God. It's not new to him. The world has seen various plagues for thousands of years. And the Bible talks about plagues and talks about what happens when plagues come and what we're supposed to do. So it's not new. It's not new in the biblical narrative. It's not new in the Christian 2,000 years. There have been numerous plagues, including a Black Death that wiped out 1/3 of Christian Europe. So we've been here before. The church has been here before. You go to the cathedrals in Europe, and underneath them you'll find mass graves because they literally could not bury the number of people that were dying. So we've been here before. So going back and looking at what were the words that encouraged people, the words that Jesus are there. Yeah. In this world you will have trouble, but be of good cheer, for I have overcome the world. Yeah. So we understand and we know as believers, this world is not our destination. Yeah. There is a new world. There is a new heaven, a new earth, a new city of God that we're going to. So we take comfort in that. And we also take courage in that. And so that gives us the courage to go out in the midst of this kind of catastrophe and say, well, what can we do? Yeah. What can we do to show love to people? How can we care for people? We're coming into a time in American culture where with the projected layoffs that are getting ready to happen, a lot of people are going to be without. And so how can we find ways to provide food for them, the basic necessities of life? How do we mobilize as a culture to say, let's take care of people?
Yeah. One of those words of Jesus that encourages me in particular is when he's on the cross, and he says, my God, why have you forsaken me? And you know he's echoing the words
Psalm.
of the Psalm 22. And honestly, I think a lot of people are echoing that, like they feel like God is forsaking them. But you know the Psalm in verse 24, I take comfort in those words where David says, God has not despised the affliction of the afflicted. He has not hidden his face from him, but when he calls, he answers. And I just take comfort in that Jesus, his last words on the cross were not just, why have you forsaken me? But he made that ultimate trust in declaring, into your hands I commit my spirit.
Right, I trust you.
I trust you.
I'm committing my way to you.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many things prophetically fulfilled on the cross, and that's one of them. And that psalm, written 1,000 years before the event, and written before the invention of crucifixion. It was not even known. And so for the travail of that to be written out by David, for him to experience that spiritually, it's a prophetic psalm. So he's experiencing that travail and literally saying the same words that Jesus is going to say 1,000 years later. When you consider the magnitude of that, what does that mean? How do you have that much detail 1,000 years before, and then have it be fulfilled? And be fulfilled at the time where God is saying, because Jesus is God, he's saying it's finished. It's completed. I have done, I have taken care of the law of sin and death. And then another psalm that follows, Psalm 22, my body rests in hope. So not only is there the prophecy of the crucifixion, there's the prophecy of the resurrection.
Yeah, exactly. And Psalm 91 comes to mind as well during this time, where it says, he who holds fast to me in love, I will deliver him. And I just, I take comfort in the Psalms. What's another thing that you have been reciting, kind of going back to, that gives you strength during this time?
Well, Psalm 91 is a go-to. And, even though 1,000 fall at your right, 10,000 at your left, it won't come near you. The plague won't come near you. Psalm 91 is also one of my father's favorite psalms. And it's not the beginning piece talking about the protection, but it's the ending, what he calls the I wills of God. Because you know my name, I will do these things. And it's a great encouragement for anyone to go through those I will. For me personally, one of my favorite verses is, I will never leave you nor forsake you. I've given God plenty of reasons over my lifetime to leave me, to forsake me, to abandon me. And his promise has always been true. I will never leave you. I will never forsake you. Nothing can separate you from the love of God.
Amen. Yeah, I take comfort in that. God is good.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
And he's good all the time. Even in the middle of a plague. Remember, he's still good, and he's still working all things together for our good.
Yeah. Amen. As the world faces the
Okay, so far, this little video clip. Thought it would be nice to show you another one still about viruses. What are they? So we go to this one, short, entertaining one.
We get it. You don't really want
What
your
is a
kids
virus?
watching videos, but it can have certain advantages. But what if your child...
Hey friends, I'm not feeling too well today. I think I have a cold. Well, I guess it's a good time to tell you about what causes cold and many other such diseases. Sorry. And that's why we'll talk about virus. Human. You know that a bacterium is a very tiny organism, right? Well, a virus is so small that it's invisible to even a bacterium. This is how it is able to infect the tiny bacterium and the cells in our bodies. Unlike the bacterium, the virus has no cytoplasm or a nucleus or anything resembling a cell. It has a very basic structure of the DNA covered by an outer protein shell and some fats. That's why viruses can't even be considered organisms at all. They are not actually living. They float around like debris in space, waiting to contact a host. And only once they enter a host can they reproduce. This is where the true terror of viruses is seen. Once inside, these little fellas hijack the cells of the organism by entering through the cell membrane. Once they do, the virus takes over the protein building structures of the host cell and forces them to replicate the virus instead. The poor cell unknowingly begins manufacturing an army of the virus till the entire cell is infected. This poor mindless slave cell does this till it explodes, releasing all the virus to infect the nearby cells. And that's how an infection spreads. That's why I got sick. But don't worry, your bodies are super smart when it comes to saving you. Every time we fall ill with a virus, the body makes a special cell called a memory cell. This cell stores all the information about the virus and how it was defeated, so that the next time the virus attacks, your body's defense is ready to destroy it. Trivia time! Did you know that even antibiotics don't work on viruses? Because antibiotics are designed to fight bacteria. In your body, the most common viruses are actually bacteriophages that infect and destroy bacteria. Oh, ouch! I think I have a cold again. Well, kids, before I go, what's the common virus in our body that destroys bacteria? Oh, and here's hoping I feel better soon, so that I can keep bringing you so much fun and interesting facts. Until next time, this is me zooming out. Oh no. Hey kids, you liked my videos, didn't you? Before you go, don't forget to click on the subscribe button and the bell, so you won't miss out on my latest videos. See?
Okay, that concludes our HASS lessons for this week. And we'll be on Monday, we'll be together again in class, where we will start a new unit, because this concludes our Middle Ages unit, and there will be no test at the end of this, as I told you earlier. What I will do is I will grade your reports, and of course I looked at your audio-visual from page 239, question 3. Have a blessed weekend, and I hope to see you on Monday. Bye for now.